As we light our chalices, let us consider the sparks of connection and community between all of us. And let us compare the flame of the chalice to the resilience of some of our nation's best leaders with these words by Kurt Vonnegut. I want to congratulate librarians, not famous for their physical strength or their powerful political connections or their great wealth, who all over this country have staunchly resisted anti-democratic bullies who have tried to remove certain books from their shelves and have refused to reveal to thought police the names and persons who have checked out those titles. So the America I loved still exists, if not in the White House, or in the Supreme Court, or in the Senate, or in the House of Representatives, or in the media. The America I love still exists at the front desks of our public libraries. And let it be so.
Praise the source of faith and learning that has sparked and stoked the mind with a passion for discerning how the world has been designed. Let the sense of wonder flowing from the wonders we survey keep our faith forever growing and renew our need to pray. Source of wisdom, we acknowledge that our science and our art and the breadth of human knowledge only partial truth impart. Far beyond our calculation lies a depth we cannot sound, where the purpose for creation and the pulse of life are found. Praise for minds to probe the heavens, praise for strength to breathe the air, praise for all that beauty leavens, praise for silence, music, prayer. Praise for justice and compassion, and for strangers, neighbors, friends. Praise for hearts and lips to fashion. Praise for love that never ends.
Hi friends, I'm Mandy Neff, and this is Hideous Hedgehog, our mascot. This September we're thinking about the value of renewal and all the interesting changes that come at this time of year that might happen around school or coming back together as a church community. And it sparked for me a story that's about coming together in community and renewing your sense of working together. And it's also about the power of water to renew and refresh things. This is called Higgins, A Drop with a Dream by Chris Buse. Once upon a time, there was a drop of water named Higgins. And Higgins wasn't just any drop of water. He was a drop with a dream. Now, Higgins lived in a valley where it hadn't rained in a very long time. The grass that had once been green was now brown. All the beautiful flowers were wilting, and all the trees were starting to droop. Higgins had a dream that the valley would one day be a beautiful place again. But what could he do? After all, he was only little. Just one drop of water. One day, Higgins decided to travel and tell others about his dream. All the other drops listened very politely, but no one believed that his dream would come true. "Higgins," said one, "get your head out of the clouds. You can't spend your whole life dreaming." Higgins decided that he had to do something to make his dream come true. So he began to think and think and think. And one day, as he was walking by a rusty old bucket, he got an idea. If enough of us drops of water got together in this bucket, Higgins thought, there would be enough water to sprinkle on the flowers and help them grow and become beautiful again. Eagerly, Higgins told everyone his great idea, but everyone thought he was being foolish. "That Higgins is nothing but a dreamer," they said. Higgins decided he had to do something to convince the others that he was right. So he said to them, "I don't know about you, but I'm getting into the bucket. I hope some of you will join me. Then there might be enough water to help at least some of these flowers grow beautiful again." So Higgins ran as hard as he could, and he hopped way up in the air and landed with a kerplunk in the bottom of the bucket. And there he sat, just a drop in the bucket. For a long time, Higgins was very lonely. It seemed like no one else was going to join him. But after a while, some of the other drops could see that the grass was dying, and the flowers were wilting, and the trees were drooping, and they all agreed that something must be done. Suddenly one drop shouted, "I'm going in the bucket with Higgins." And he leaped through the air and landed, kerplunk, in the bucket. Then two other drops yelled, "Wait for us!" And they hopped through the air and landed in the bucket. Then 10 drops jumped through the air into the bucket. Then 30, then 50, and then hundreds of drops came from all around just to hop in the bucket. Soon the bucket was completely full of water. But there were still more drops that wanted to join. So they found another bucket and hopped in. Before long, there were 2 buckets of water, then 3, then 4, then 10, and then hundreds, and then thousands of buckets of water. Along came a powerful breeze that blew over all the buckets, and all the water flowed together to make a mighty stream. Everywhere the water flowed, the grass turned green again, and the flowers bloomed, and the trees stood tall and straight once more. All this happened because Higgins had a dream, and his dream came true. Because he knew that although he was just a drop in the bucket, enough drops in the bucket make a bucket full. And when there are enough buckets, with the wind behind them, then justice will roll down like waters, and righteousness like a mighty stream.
Spirit of life, come unto me. Sing in my heart all the stirrings of compassion. Blow in the wind, rise in the sea, move in the hand, giving life the shape of justice. Roots hold me close, wings set me free. Spirit of life, come to me, come to me. Fuente de amor, ven hacia mí. Ya corazón, cántale tu compasión. Sopla volar, sube en la mar, hasta modear la justicia de la vida. Arraigame, libérame, fuente de amor, ven a mí, ven a mí.
As a child, I loved the library. This is probably not a surprise to most people. It won't be a surprise to the people who grew up with me and teased me for reading the dictionary like a book, for the college friends who saw me endlessly going in and out of Firestone Library at Princeton, or to people who know me from seminary, where I had a religious practice around writing my papers in the library. Yes, libraries have always been places of refuge for me. But more than that, they've been places of exploration, expansion, and travel. I learned from the very beginning to use libraries as a way to go places that I had yet to go or that I might never get to go to. I vacillated between maps and travel magazines and biographies and poetry. The combination was a potent mix that created the inner adventurer in me that is still very much alive. I think it was in my teens when I figured out that I could discover a place on a map and then read about it through an author's life and work. I did this with James Baldwin. I already knew Harlem, but Baldwin was my first inspiration to study maps of Paris. And those maps, in turn, made me more curious about Baldwin himself. Now, as an extremely lucky adult who has actually been to Paris, I understand it on a much more intimate and personal level. But libraries have rules as well. Quiet is one rule, no running is another. But the biggest rule of all is to return the books on time. Borrowing a library book is one of those quaint public trusts that I hope people don't completely lose in the digital age. This is one of the more harmless, though I would argue valuable, trusts that speak to a culture of interdependence and mutual care. I have this book. I'm willing to loan it to you for free on the simple condition that you bring it back. What's remarkable about this trust is that libraries will even trust you to renew that borrowing privilege, sometimes repeatedly. It is an ongoing, renewable trust that is built into the relationship. Sometimes we need to renew our borrowing privilege. Sometimes we need to renew our trust as well. Right now in Florida, there is an ongoing debate about people who are formerly incarcerated for felonies and their right to vote. At its heart, this is a question of trust and renewal. Now, I'm someone who doesn't believe that relinquishing your right to vote should be any part of our penal system. The fact that it is speaks to the historical roots of our modern incarceration system and its role as an extension of slavery. The privilege of voting was established in this country based on one's perceived humanity, which at the time was determined by intellectual, economic, and social capacities based almost entirely on gender and race and status of freedom. It took a few hundred years for full enfranchisement to be formally codified in this country, and even today, it is still under attack. Sadly, the question of humanity and who has human rights in the United States is also up for debate. Incarceration as an extension and a tool to generate poverty and class stratification underscores the ways in which huge swaths of largely black and brown people are dehumanized in our society. And it serves no useful purpose. Incarceration as a tool for dehumanization is not a deterrent to crime. In fact, it generates more crime both inside and outside of the system. I'm a firm believer that our penal system must rediscover itself as something that is not based first on punishment, but instead is based on redemption and trust. I was briefly part of the fight in California several years ago to have the penal code of that state revised to reflect this kind of thinking, and I'm thrilled that it is part of the Biden-Harris platform. Mass incarceration will not end until we, A, end its power as an economic driver, and B, shift its purpose from punishment to reconciliation, recognizing that part of the reconciliation process moves toward compensation for loss and not the other way around. In 2018, Florida did the right thing. They reinstated voting rights for people who had been convicted of felonies. But right now, those same people are being barred from voting because of limitations being placed on them because of fines and fees that they may or may not know they even have. And I say may or may not know because there is apparently no system for them to properly and efficiently find out what their total and or ongoing fines may be. It is as if you took a book out of the library and no one ever told you when it was due. Whether it is a library book or a felony, there is a basic question of trust that I wonder if we as a society are increasingly less capable of extending. A public library is just that, public. It is not a limited access institution for only those who can afford the fee. I would argue that voting is similar, and in many ways even more public. It makes no sense to me that if you are subject to the laws and directives of a society, that you then lose your right to participate in that process when you break those laws. Laws are trusts. They are public agreements that ask everyone to participate, like a library. And yes, I know I'm oversimplifying to some extent, but if someone keeps taking out books from the library and not returning them, it makes no sense to simply bar them from the library or charge them multiplying fees without them knowing. At some point, someone has to ask directly of that person, why are you taking books? The primary goal should be to get the books back, not to inflict pain on the person who took them. Someone else's pain will not replace the book. The underlying assumption that exists in the simple trust of how a library is designed is the assumption that you are taking the book for some good reason. It is also the assumption behind why libraries let you renew your borrowing, sometimes over and over again. Now, I'm not at all saying that mass incarceration is simple. Nor am I saying that crime and reformation are simple or easy. But I think there are cues in the rest of our world and our society, and certainly in all of our faith traditions, that say it is important that we don't throw each other away. My faith requires me to ask of the person who repeatedly takes the books from me, why are you taking the books? And I ask that before I seek punishment. Sure, I'm mad, but I want to find a way to still hold them in relationship. Faith of all kinds, calls us to break down systems that deny redemption and renewal of trust. Sometimes those systems are as complicated and life-altering as incarceration, and other times they're more straight ahead, like a library. But we all have to remember that sometimes some people need more time than others to finish the book. May it be so.
Love will guide us, peace has tried us, hope inside us will lead the way on the road from greed to giving. Love will guide us through the hard night. If you cannot sing like angels, if you can